The wind screamed across the frozen plains that night, carrying sheets of snow that fell so thick a man could hardly see his own boots. But inside the old barn on the Carson Ranch, a single lantern glowed faint and warm, hanging from a wooden beam. Over the hayloft and down below the horses stamped nervously, sensing the storm deepening outside, while Ethan Carson pushed the barn door shut behind him, shaking ice from his coat and muttering that this Christmas Eve had brought the harshest winter he had seen in years. And as he lifted the lantern higher, a faint rustle above made him pause and stare upward, unsure if it was the wind or something else entirely. And then he heard it again, soft and quick, like someone trying not to breathe. Too loudly and without hesitation, Ethan took the ladder one slow step at a time, his boots creaking against the rungs until his head rose above the line of hay bales, and there in the dim corner he saw her, a girl no more than 20, curled against the wall, wrapped in a thin shawl, her face streaked with cold and fear as she pressed back like a cornered fawn and whispered, "Please, do not send me away, sir. I will leave as soon as the storm ends, I promise." And Ethan felt his breath catch, for she looked half frozen and trembling, and nothing about her spoke of threat, only desperation. So he set the lantern down slowly and lifted both hands, palms open, as he whispered, "You are safe here, miss. Do not be afraid. Tell me what happened." And she blinked, as if she had not expected kindness. Then tears welled fast, and she buried her face in her hands, saying, "The coach left me in town. The inn was full. The man who offered a ride was not who he claimed to be. And I ran until I saw this barn. I had nowhere else to go." And Ethan felt a sharp protective feeling rise inside him, the same one he used to feel when tending wounded colts. And he moved closer, careful and slow, taking off his coat and draping it around her shoulders, even though she tried weakly to refuse, saying, "You will freeze." But he only smiled gently and said, "I have weathered worse storms. This coat will do more good keeping you alive." And she looked at him through damp lashes, her eyes catching the lantern light and revealing a soft brown color, warm even in fear. And as he helped her sit up, he asked her name, and she whispered, "Clara," then winced as if expecting punishment for speaking, but Ethan only nodded and said, "Clara, I am Ethan Carson. This ranch is mine, and I promise no harm will come to you tonight or any night while you are under my roof." And Clara shivered again, not from the cold, but from the release of fear, because his voice held a steadiness that soothed the frantic beat of her heart. And the storm raged outside, but inside the hayloft, a quiet warmth settled between them as Ethan helped her down the ladder, supporting her gently, for her legs were too weak from the cold to hold her steady. And when they reached the barn floor, he wrapped an extra blanket around her shoulders, leading her toward the small room at the back of the barn, where he kept tools and spare supplies and a tiny stove that still held a bit of warmth from earlier. And he knelt to stir the embers, coaxing a small flame to life, while Clara sank into the chair near the wall, her eyes watching him like she still could not believe he was real. And when the fire began to burn brighter, Ethan turned back to her, saying, "We need to get you warm first, then food, then rest. After that, we will figure out the rest together." And she whispered, "Why would you help a stranger?" And Ethan paused, leaning his forearms on his knees, his face lit by the glow of the fire. And he said, "My mother always told me kindness is a shelter in itself, and tonight you need shelter more than anyone I've met." And Clara stared at him long, a softness deepening in her expression, before she whispered, "Thank you." And those two words hit Ethan with unexpected force, stirring something inside him he had kept quiet for many years, since his parents' passing and the loneliness of running the ranch alone. But he pushed the feeling aside and fetched warm broth from the house, returning quickly so she would not be alone too long. And Clara drank slowly, her hands shaking as she held the cup. And when she finished, she whispered, "I can work for my keep if you need help with chores or cooking or anything. I do not want charity." And Ethan gave a small laugh, not mocking but tender, saying, Clara, this is not charity. This is humanity. You were left in a dangerous situation, and I am only doing what any decent man should do. And Clara lowered her gaze, her hair falling forward in curls that had escaped her shawl, and she whispered, "You are the first decent man I have met in a long time." And Ethan looked at her for a moment, unable to speak because he sensed the weight behind her words, and he wanted to ask more. But the exhaustion in her posture told him she needed rest more than questions, so he set a thick bedroll near the stove, adding extra blankets, and guided her to it, saying, "Sleep. Now the storm will pass by morning, and you will be safe. Here until you decide what comes next." And Clara gave a small nod, curling beneath the blankets, and for the first time since he found her, she closed her eyes, trusting him. And Ethan sat nearby, watching over her, listening to the storm batter the barn walls, and thinking how strange life could be that on a night meant for celebration. He should find a frightened girl hiding in his hayloft and feel so certain she was supposed to be there. And hours passed until the storm eased a little and the lantern dimmed. Ethan finally let himself rest, though he never allowed sleep to claim him, fully listening in case she woke needing something. And just before dawn, Clara stirred, opening her eyes slowly and seeing Ethan still sitting close, and she whispered, "You stayed," and he nodded, saying, "Of course," and she sat up, brushing hair from her face, and for the first time, the faintest hint of a smile touched her lips, and she said, "I did not think I would feel safe again, not after what happened." And Ethan leaned forward, saying, "Clara, if someone hurt you or chased you, they will not find you here, and if they try, they will answer to me." And Clara inhaled unsteadily, her fingers tightening around the blanket as she whispered, "The man from the road. He tried to force me to go with him. I escaped, but he might come looking." And Ethan felt heat rise in his chest, not from the fire, but from anger that any person would prey on a woman alone in a storm, and he said, quietly, "Then let him come. I have dealt with worse than cowards who hunt the helpless." And Clara studied him for a long moment, her eyes softening as if she finally believed she could trust him. Then she whispered, "Ethan, why are you being so good to me?" And he met her gaze steadily and said, "Because you deserve someone to be good to you, because no one should face a winter night alone, because maybe I have been alone long enough too." And Clara looked at him, touched by the sincerity in his voice, and something warm bloomed inside her, like the first spark of hope after endless cold. And though the storm still clung to the land outside, Christmas morning dawned brighter inside the barn, where two strangers shared a quiet warmth neither had expected to find. And as Clara stood slowly, Ethan offered his hand, and when she placed hers in it, he squeezed, gently whispering again, "You are safe here, Clara." And for the first time she believed him, and the day unfolded with simple tasks. Ethan showing her the ranch, the animals, the fields buried under snow, and Clara moving slowly but stronger with each step until she could smile without fear creeping behind it. And by evening, when the sky blushed with the colors of sunset, Clara whispered, "This is the first place that has felt like home." And Ethan felt his chest tighten with something deep and unmistakable, because her words stirred hope inside him that maybe fate had brought her to his hayloft for a reason. And when night settled once more, he led her back to the warm room in the barn, but this time he hesitated at the door, unsure if she wanted him to stay near. And Clara looked at him for a long moment, her voice soft when she said, "If you do not mind, I sleep easier knowing you are close." And Ethan nodded quietly, setting his bedroll on the floor near hers, both fires glowing low and steady. And as she drifted toward sleep, she whispered, "Ethan, thank you for finding me." And he whispered back, "Clara, thank you for letting yourself be found." And outside, the winter moon rose, casting silver over the ranch, while inside two hearts began to thaw from loneliness, their warmth filling the quiet space where a frightened girl once hid. And a kind man whispered, "You are safe here," and meant it with all his soul.